Gaza. Almost 20 years after the Israeli government removed its 10,000 Jewish residents from Gaza, the Arab-only metropolis has earned international recognition as a systemic cesspool that spawns terror, maintains a permanent state of Hamas, chaos, and corruption, and is a fiery money pit burning through foreign taxpayers' international aid. Not only was the expulsion of Jews a tragic and failed attempt by Israel to give land for peace, but the millions of Arabs living there have allowed Hamas to rule them even after decades of failed genocidal charter. Hamas has brought nothing but false hope, death, and destruction to its own local residents, and it continuously fattens the military-industrial complex while financially benefiting from an economic cycle of aid centered on senselessly losing battle after battle in a 6-decade Arab war against the Jewish state. If Gaza is any indication of what a future Arab-only state will bring to the world, what military lessons can we learn? Nearly 20 years after Israel gave terrorists what they wanted and created a case study for Oslo and what some call the two-state solution. In this episode of Tribe Journal, we pause for reflection and consider the lessons learned from the Gaza Strip.
בואו נלך אחורה. ב-1917 הבריטים כבשו את הארץ, והם שלטו בעזה עד 1948. ב-1948 שהבריטים עזבו, נכנס ממשל צבאי מצרי. ועזה שנשלטה על ידי ממשל צבאי מצרי עד 67. לישראל לא היה שום גישה לעזה, ולא היה לישראל שום מעורבות, ולא היה לישראל שום אחריות. לא עבדו בישראל, לא עברו לישראל, לא עברו דרך ישראל. וב-56 ישראל כבשה את עזה, אבל אז בן גוריון היה ראש ממשלה. היה לו תבונה מדינית, והוא הבין מיד שעזה היא פצצה דמוגרפית אנושית, ובערך הממוצע הוא 8 נפשות למשפחה, נמשך עד היום. אז הוא אמר לא לגעת בעזה. ואיתך לא חשבו על שום התנחלות או על שום דבר. לקראת 69, 70, בא אריק ואמר בוא נתחיל ליישב את החבל הזה.
אתם החזית וגם הגב של עם ישראל. ואנחנו כולנו חייבים לכם על זה שאתם עומדים בקו החזית. המאבק הזה כאן הוא זה שקובע. זה הביטחון של מדינת ישראל.
כל התפיסה הזאת שהתנחלות נותנת משהו לביטחון, זה קשקוש בלבוש. הוא לא יודע אף פעם לעשות דברים קטנים, הוא רק עושה דברים גדולים. אבל כביצועיסט אין שני לו בארץ הזאת, ובעמדה שלו כראש ממשלה, הוא חייב לחשוב על השיקול האזורי, על השיקול הגלובלי, ואם יימשכו פינויים נוספים ביהודה ובשומרון, אפשר יהיה להתקדם. על בסיס שישראל מחזירה שטחים.
Of course, hindsight is always the best, but it is still painful to review national leadership in any course of history and revisit the complete destruction that naive political optimism can bring. The families who are uprooted, the communities torn from their synagogues, the businesses that were destroyed because of naive optimism, and a hateful enemy who offers nothing but empty promises time after time after time.
כששאלו אותי, האם עזה היא נכס אסטרטגי צבאי למדינת ישראל, אמרתי לא. ומצד שני, עזיבה באופן לא מבוקר של רצועת עזה, עלולה להפוך את הרצועה לסיכון אסטרטגי כבד מאוד. כי חשבתי שאם כבר הולכים לצאת מעזה, צריך לעשות את זה בדרך שבה הפלסטינים חייבים לשלם מחיר כבד על זה. זה לא קרה. אחד הדברים שמדהימים אותי זה שלערבים לגיטימי לחיות במדינת ישראל היהודית, וליהודים לא לגיטימי לחיות במדינה פלסטינית אם תהיה בעתיד. איך הצלחנו להגיע לזה? שלגיטימי לפנות יהודים ולא לגיטימי לפנות ערבים. היהודים שהתיישבו ברצועת עזה לא התיישבו על אדמה פלסטינית. הם הם התיישבו בעל חולות, זה לא היה בבעלות פלסטינית. לכן היה לגיטימי. למה הכל מיד הולך למלחמה? מדברים היום בציבור הישראלי על מהלכים חד צדדיים. אבל איזה החלטות אתה מחליט שהצד השני לא מסכים עם עצם קיומך? כל גבול שאתה תייצב יהפוך להיות הגבול שממנו ממשיכים להילחם בך.
In recent years, following what we call the first intifada and then the last 4 or 5 years of conflict, it became much harder for those people to live there. A lot of mortar shells, snipers, many terror attacks invading into those settlements, killing people in their homes. As long as the Israeli government wanted them or agreed that they'll be there, they could sustain. Once the Israeli government had taken a decision to evacuate them, they tried to change this decision, but it was clear to all of us that if they can't change the decision in a democratic way, they will have to leave.
הסיפור רגיש ביותר. שני בתי הכנסת האלה מסמלים את גוש קטיף. עם ישראל מעריך מאוד את צורת ההתנהגות שלנו.
אני רוצה שתסתכל לי בעיניים כשאתה מדבר על זה. שאתה מגרש אותנו מבתי הכנסת שלנו. זה מחפיר שחיילי צה"ל הולכים להחריב בתי כנסת. זה מחפיר. אל תעשו את משימתכם. אל תעשו.
וכפי שעשיתם עד היום,
עשיתם עד היום משימות הרבה יותר טובות. נלחמתם באויב, בטרור, לא באחים.
אני מבקש מכולם לנקות את בית הכנסת עכשיו, לנקות, להתחבק עם האנשים היקרים האלה ולצא איתם החוצה.
One of the elements that we believe will help us thwart the plan is the tens of thousands of soldiers who are going to refuse to carry out this order. We were all educated that the army is holy. The army is holy as long as it carries out what it is meant to do, to defend the Israeli people, to fight the Arab terrorists. And I wonder how Gershon Cohen does not try to stop this and like a robot is fulfilling the orders. I have no compassion for him. I have no feeling for him.
When I informed my father and I got this mission, he said, "Oy vavoy." It means, yes, terrible. And then he said immediately, without waiting to my answer, "But you have no choice, you must do it." I am a soldier serving this state. For me, it is absolutely clear what I have to do. I have to fulfill my order. that war games that I participated with, yet it was the chief of staff, BOGI alone. It was April 2005.
To try to play out what would happen.
I told them, listen, go to Sharon, tell him that in all our war games, we are realizing that we will not have an adaptable response to the potential of threats that will emerge after the disengagement, because we will not have legitimacy to just bomb with artillery shells a refugee camp like Jabalia with 50,000 residents, to Bet Hanun that it is 5 minutes from Ashkelon.
Right.
We will not be able, because we will have a lot of reasons why not now, why to delay it, why it is illegitimate now. Inform him that what he's doing is irresponsible regarding the future of Israel. Both of chief of staff, this one that was still chief of staff, BOGI, Yalon, and the next was Dan Kautz, warned me that I'm speaking absolutely by political ideas, that I'm not allowed to speak like that. I told them, listen, among all of you, I'm the only one speaking professionally regarding professional military attitude.
On July 14th, 2018, that was Shabbos afternoon, I was in shul with my youngest son. A rocket hit our house. Thank God nobody was home. My youngest son still sleeps in the safe room. He wouldn't sleep with the window open. It's a metal heavy window, and that's his room. The first time we got shelters in Sderot, there were trucks bringing sheltered bus stops. I told my friends, we have to stop them, because once we concrete ourselves, nobody would respond on shooting us. That's what we feel here.
May 2021. 4,000 plus rockets launched out of Gaza at Israel.
That was 2 years ago. It was war. Sleeping in shelters. If you shower, it's a very quick shower. You never want to be caught, no clothes on you. And no, that's
the reality.
Yeah, that is. I know children who wouldn't shower. They wouldn't leave the shelter.
Do you feel that the government's doing enough?
I don't feel that they're doing enough, no. But I don't know what they should do, but I don't feel they're doing enough. I assume it's more complicated than what I think, but I really don't know. The fact the rockets are continuing means they didn't find the right answer to that.
I'm glad you made it to Netzach Hazani. Welcome. My name is Anita Taka. I live in Netzach Hazani. I lived in Netzach Hazani in Gaza for 30 years. I had children that were born there and grandchildren that were born there. I was a farmer there, and I'm looking forward to go home as soon as possible. I miss home. Let's talk. Come on in. You can see the flags. That's nice. No? We're here about 10 years. We're still Zionists in spite of the fact that we were thrown out. Come on in. Welcome. I'm from South Brooklyn, and my husband from Cleveland. We went to the Ministry of Agriculture. They gave us a list of places that absorb families for agriculture. We got out of the car, and what do we see? Sand and sand and sand and more sand. This was in 1975. There wasn't an insect on the sand dunes. There wasn't a weed on the sand. There wasn't a human being in sight. There wasn't an animal. It was just bald sand dunes. We had God's help, and the place, the sand dunes turned into green. It was unbelievable. We went from a very small amount of produce per dunam to huge amounts. We grew every kind of vegetable, flower that you can imagine, and it just was very, very successful. We taught all our Arab neighbors modern agriculture, and when they connected us to a national water pipeline, we insisted they connect our Arab neighbors to the water pipeline, of course. And when they connected us to the electric grid, we insisted that they connect our Arab neighbors who are still using generators. This is the change that happened. So when they decided on the disengagement, what do? You continue growing. You just keep on with your life. We're never going to stop having trouble from it until we live together.
What do you see as a solution?
People who lived in the Gaza Strip should continue living in the Gaza Strip. At the time, Begin talked about
וזה מייעץ לי, הצ'אנסלר הגרמני, הוא יודע מה ביטחוננו ואני לא. אני הופקדתי על ידי העם לשמור ביטחונו. זו חובתי הקדושה. והוא נותן לי עצות לכל אירופה ולכל העולם איך להכריח אותנו לקבל מדינה פלסטינית, הרי זה מעשה איבה שלא היה כמוהו. וממי הוא בא? מבנו של העם הנושא באחריות בעד רצח שליש מן עמנו, 6 מיליונים, דבר שלא קרה מאז האלוהים ברא את האדם והאדם יצר את השטן. הוא ייתן לנו עצות איך לשמור על ביטחוננו, הוא יפקיר את דמנו, הוא ינהל תעמולה למען מדינה פלסטינית. אז כשאדון שמיט, צ'נסלר, נו, תסלחו לי רבותיי, אני באתי מן המחתרת הלוחמת, אני לא מפחד מפני אף אחד, אני אומר לו את האמת בפניו, אין לי שום סיבה לפחד, אנחנו ראינו את המוות לעינינו כל יום. אז כשהוא אומר דברים כאלה אני לא אשיב לו? אינני יודע מה שקרה עם עמי, אינני יודע מה שקרה עם משפחתי, אינני יודע מה שקרה עם אחותיכם ואחיכם? מה, אינני יודע? הוא אחרי כל אלה יאמר לנו תקימו מדינה פלסטינית? כלומר, תעמידו את 3.5 מיליון היהודים בארץ ישראל בסכנת מוות וכיליון? ואני לא אשיב לו? לא שיבותי לו. כמו שצריך, ידידי. אני לא מוותר אפילו על מילה אחת ממה שאמרתי. ואם יש כמה יפי נפש שככה החילו להקם את האף שלהם, יהיה להם אף עקום.
They could vote for their own people. They wouldn't be part of Israel, actually, but they would have their own local government within, and they can work it out within. They can pay taxes to Israel. We give them all the benefits. People would be totally delighted to have an opportunity to make a living. What does a normal person want? That he should be safe and his family should have food to eat.
You still have some friends there?
Whoever stayed alive was collaborating or he was dead. The last time we had contact with someone, a guy who was a carpenter who knew English, got in touch to say that I read in the Jerusalem Post that you guys are having a lot of problems with the Israeli government. You're not getting compensation. Can I send you some money? He said that. And then a few weeks later, his wife said they picked him up. He's in jail. He's being tortured. And then the next time, there was no contact with anybody anymore. And the same thing happened with my son, who sent medicine to his workers. When the PLO stopped the mail from going through to Gaza, he didn't have his medicines anymore. He probably died. I lived in a place where no one was living before. It was totally empty. My neighbors were happy to have us come there. We lived there for 30 years. That's a long time. Children were born, grandchildren. And I long for home, and I think it's legitimate. And actually, in 1977, some old guy from Jerusalem by the name of El Kayam came to visit us where we were living temporarily, and he took us on a trip to Gaza City, to the old Jewish quarter. His family were one of the families that lived in the old Jewish quarter until 1929, Tarpat, when the Jews were massacred in Jerusalem and in Hebron, and the British government made the Jews that were living in Gaza leave because they were afraid the massacres were going to come to Gaza as well. And they promised them they would be able to come back, but then they never let them come back. And we went to visit this neighborhood. We saw exactly where the mezuzah was torn out of the door because it was built inside. There were arched doorways. And this guy, El Kayam, said, let's knock at this door. This is where my family lived until 1929, for generations. And we knocked on the door. This old Arab lady, about the same age as him, opened the door. She welcomed us in. She made us coffee before the times of peace, no problem. He asked her, how did you come to this house? So she said, my family's from Saudi Arabia. We left because of the economic situation. We came here looking, my father was looking for work. He asked the people, where can we live? And they said the Jews fled. Go into any one of these houses. It's empty. It was in 1929, the exact time when his family was forced to leave. And that's why my family is living here ever since and this guy El Kayam said, I know, this is where my family lived for generations. And you could feel his longing for home. And then he took us to another doorway, and there was a beautiful mosaic floor inside. It was a mosque. And also you could see where the mezuzah was torn out. And he said, this is where I learned Aleph Bet. This was my school. You could feel that he was like yearning for home. He was so sad. You know what? It's legitimate to yearn for home. It's okay for me to yearn for home. It's not political. I've spoken to Arab groups, Christian groups, Jewish groups, everybody, leftists, rightists. Everybody can understand that you yearn for home. That's not so crazy. How's it going to work out? It's got to be better than it is now. It can't get worse than now, much worse than it is now. It's pretty bad now. Look what's going on. We heard all the noise of the rockets today.
If you could send one message to the people in Gaza, not the government in Gaza.
As soon as the government lets us, we'll come and save you soon from your Arab leadership. I think we have to save the Arabs from themselves. Where are all the humane people? I don't know. Where are all the humane people? All these people that are so worried about everything and all over the world. And why don't they care about these poor Arabs that are being, by people who come from the outside and take them over? They can't make a living. They can't live normally. It's crazy.
Today, the people of Sderot and the South in general have been, as a direct result of what happened 18 years ago, the price is being paid and paid and paid continuously. And then you have to ask yourself the question, so was it really worth it? Was it really worth it? I always bring an example. In the background there, you see the power plant of Ashkelon. We provide 70% of the electricity we provide to Gaza. But how many times has Hamas tried to take out that power plant with their rockets? They're not in it for the good of the people there. They have one thing and one thing in their charter, to destroy Israel.
Forget about repeating again the great victory of 67. This is my main debate with all the retired generals, because warfare was absolutely transformed and changed. This is the reason why the battles in Mosul and in Halab and other cities taking so long with the best military forces. By no means, in this new warfare, can we keep Judea and Samaria demilitarized zone. Prime Minister Netanyahu, by speaking about two-states solution, demanding the Palestinian state to be demilitarized. Absolutely impossible. Why? It is really easy to inspect divisions of armor units crossing the Jordan River. Who can inspect a rocket or RPG missile or explosive charge in a track of potatoes? Nobody. What can satellites, radars, etc. do with that? Nothing. All those speaking about devices that will give us excellent control and inspection, they are just illusions. The main idea, speaking by everyone like Ehud Barak, Chaim Ramon, is that we are here and they will be there with the border. And what will be behind the border? They will vanish. We can learn from what happened beyond the border in Gaza. The fence protecting them much more than us. Why? Because beyond the border, they are well protected to build well-formed military organization with battalions, brigades, headquarters, tunnels, building weapons. They cannot do that today in Nablus, Ramallah, because we are there every day with 2 jeeps. Since disengagement in Gaza, the problem became much worse. Why? And this is very, very important. I'll give you a picture of Gaza before the disengagement. Just think, in order to go to Gaza, we can come from here, from a lot of directions. We can lead surprise. The same about the refugee camps here, or Rafah or Khan Yunis. What else? Very, very important. The border between Egypt and Gaza Strip was protected by us. Therefore, they couldn't really smuggle severe mass of weapons. With all the goodwill of the Egyptians, they cannot stop the smuggling. How can we trust the Americans that will stop the smuggling of rockets from Iran, Syria, Jordan to Kalkilia and Tulkarim? No way. Another point, I prefer daily small-scale fire and engagement upon time of silence and then a big peak, huge war. In Gaza, we had 3 huge operations in 2014, 2012, 2008, with huge operational forces. My main idea, what is necessary for the Israeli protection, coming back to the map, we need the Jordan River in our own hands. Not only the river and not only the road, all this line from Arad, here Itamar and Delon More, Tapuach here. All this line, we must bring it as a strip, equivalent to the strip of the beach, and only by that we can protect Israel. The territorial considerations are very, very important, mainly in the new way of warfare. Just look what happened in Sinai, that the Egyptians couldn't demolish ISIS there, troops of the Bedouin that hiding inside the mountains in Sinai. Second, the settlement are necessary factor in maintaining the Israeli security. And this is the new factor in the post-modern warfare. Who is leading the Chinese, for example, in their expansion in Chinese Sea? Ships of fishers.
They look like city lights on the horizon, but this is an armada of fishing vessels.
What the Americans can do against them? The same in Donetsk.
Special correspondent Nick Schifrin and producer Zach Fannin traveled to Donetsk.
They resist Ukraine's alliance with Europe. They align with Russia, and as the war persists, their desire to separate grows.
The settlers are a subversive force that is more relevant than troops. Every settler living here is part of the Israeli complex of security. And the last point, people are asking me, why not to trust the goodwill of the Arabs, the good people? Why not to think positively? We must speak realistically. And nobody can, as a leader of a nation, to negotiate about dreams. What was said by elected President Trump, that he will bring the Israelis and Palestinians to do good business, we must emphasize, solving national conflicts is absolutely different from business affairs. Why? Because in business affairs, it is not open the day later. Here, everything is forever open-ended.
As Israeli demographics continue to shift the ideology of the nation, the religious perspective is becoming increasingly relevant. However, this is a military analysis. Perhaps in future episodes of Tribe Journal, we will try to understand the many nuanced perspectives within the Torah-observant world. One thing remains clear for now. As the Palestinian drums of war against the Jews grow louder, giving the Palestinian Authority, or Hamas, their own independent state will only bring the front lines of this 6-decade war that much closer to Jerusalem.